It's not every day that you get a chance to meet two indie rock icons who are identical twins and Canadian. So when X1FM was offered the opportunity to spend some quality time with Tegan and Sara, we couldn't refuse. And our interview covered just about everything: touring, behind the Sainthood CD, their childhood, the music they listen to while they're on the road, and tons more. So come on, listen and watch as X1FM interacts with Tegan and Sara in another exclusive video interview.
We play a lot of venues of different size and type. We try to keep it interesting. You know, we just came off a month in Canada playing at mainly music halls, symphony halls, that sort of thing, seated theaters, and we've been down in the States now for a few weeks, and we've been doing all sorts of different stuff. You know, standing room clubs, symphony hall shows, and then traditional kind of just big open warehouse spaces where everybody just jams in and drinks beer. Sainthood for me is like a really interesting record to look at as a whole because it's a very collaborative feeling record. You know, there's a song Sara and I wrote together. There's a few songs that I wrote with Hunter Bergen from AFI, and we did pre-production and the recording as a band. So we all stood in a room together for months recording, and Sara and I sang and played on each other's songs, which we don't typically do on record. Like usually Sara will write like a song like Back in Your Head. She recorded all the keyboards and guitars, and she had the idea for the whole song already mapped out when we went into the studio. And on this record, to compare, like a song like Alligator, we all played in a room together, and so, I was coming up with my own keyboard and vocal ideas and stuff, so it feels like a really collaborative record, and I think it's our most rock, like, upbeat record because of that, because you have all this energy being poured into the same piece of art, so it feels really, even though it's still kind of thematically kind of dark, it feels really high energy because you had, this big ball of energy being thrown at this record. So
I always like to think that, whatever it is that Tegan does, when she's writing songs, and whatever I do, like whatever our specific styles are in terms of arrangements or melody ideas, we always sort of are able to sort of come closer to the center so that the band really sounds cohesive. Like, there's a natural tendency to still want what you do naturally to like be, audible. Like I really enjoy when people can tell what song Tegan wrote and what song I wrote. Like I feel like that's a part of having like an identity as a songwriter that's important to me. But then on the other hand, I also realize that like to have a cohesive sounding record from start to finish is also like a super important thing. And so I feel like we're able to sort of come closer to the middle. Like Tegan is has a really specific way of arranging music and has a really specific style, and so it's easy for me to sort of like get a little bit more artistic with arrangements and stuff, and like I'm a much more patient person, so sometimes I'll have like longer songs or I'll have more complicated arrangements, and I think it's an important thing for our band that sometimes Tegan sort of like reels that in a little bit and helps me sort of like focus my music a little bit. And then I also feel like, for me to be able to like inject some of my ideas or my pop mentality into Tegan's songs, I think that also, helps, just give some depth to what we're both doing, and also just sort of like leave our imprint so that it sort of sounds like, we're like one band. Our parents were young when they had us, so we grew up with a lot of music in our household. We kind of joke about it, but like our house was covered in Bruce Springsteen posters, like framed, lit Bruce Springsteen posters, U2 posters. My parents, or my stepdad and my mom's like first serious date was flying to Vancouver to see U2. They really brought it. We had like a giant record collection, and as long as Sara and I left the stereo exactly as Bruce, our stepdad, had left it when he left for work, we were allowed to use the stereo when he was at work. And so I think we both grew up with like the whole Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Police, Krista Burke, Supertramp, like, yeah, we used to pass back and forth, like, Michael Jackson tapes, and so I think, like, that's where our pop, like, our love of pop music and our love of, like, harmonies and, more, like, sing-along music kind of came from. For this album, leading up to it, I was listening to a lot of hip-hop, and I was trying not to listen to anything in the rock, indie rock kind of world. I loved Rihanna's last record. I thought that those were really good pop songs, and so I try to listen to stuff that isn't necessarily like sonically like what Tegan and Sara does, but if I'm gonna siphon some influence, I want to do it from somewhere where I don't feel like we'll look, I don't know, you sort of like, you don't want to grab too much from like the people who are sort of like your contemporaries or your peers, because I don't want to sound like bands that I love and really like listen to a lot. Like I want to sound like something completely different.
Hey everyone, we are Tegan and Sara,
and you are watching and listening to X1FM.